3.com. Don't forget our Godzilla Win Show, Saturday, 8 to 10. We got a lot of football going on. You can tune us in on the John Fredericks Media Network, all of our radio stations. You can download our app. Godzilla Wins 8 to 10 on Saturday. Don't want to miss that. Next up, folks, have a great weekend. Guess where we're going right now? American Sunrise with Dr. Gina and Miranda Khan and David Brody. Up right now. Stay with us. See you.
Harrison Floyd was charged along with President Trump in Georgia, one of only 2 black Americans to be named in the case. He was left to languish in jail for days. Why exactly? Well, he's here to answer that question.
New reports that the Ron DeSantis campaign is losing big donors in a big way. We have the details on why the cash may be drying up.
A case of confusion, or is he simply misguided? Of all the places Joe Biden might travel to commemorate September 11th and honor those who were killed that day, why is he headed to Alaska? We'll dig into it.
And 6 Republicans file a lawsuit to remove Trump from the 2024 ballot in Colorado. Why? Stay tuned.
And President Trump heads to South Dakota tonight to attend a Republican rally. But is he really there in search of his running mate? We're there on the ground. Find out those stories more as American Sunrise starts right now.
We've got your back as you start your day.
Articulating what what the majority of Americans feel today, and I really appreciate that you do.
Y'all tell the truth.
You guys are our voice.
We watch every morning while getting ready for work.
Good morning, Patriot Warriors. I'm Dr. Gina.
And I'm Miranda Khan. I hope your morning is off to a great start. We are coming to you live from West Palm Beach. Boy, do we have a jam-packed show today.
Every day.
Every day. Let's welcome in now David Brody in Washington, D.C. Good to see you, my friend.
Ladies, great to see you. Looking very colorful today. I'm in a boring suit like always. That womp womp. And speaking of suits, but not an empty one, the best dressed man on television, Terrance Bates in Denver. Great to see you, sir. You've got the headlines. We've got a lot to get to.
David, good morning. Miranda, Gina, good morning to you as well. A newly uncovered European Union memo praising then Ukrainian prosecutor Viktor Shokin's efforts to deal with corruption, organized crime, and human trafficking is shedding new doubt about then Vice President Joe Biden's explanation for forcing Shokin's firing. Our friends at Just the News are reporting EU countries had largely reached consensus that Ukraine and Shokin had met their goals of fighting and investigating large-scale crime. At the same time, Biden threatened to withhold U.S. aid from Ukraine unless Shokin was fired. The then vice president argued that Shokin wasn't fighting corruption aggressively enough. During this very same time period, though, Shokin was investigating energy company Burisma Holdings, which of course was paying Hunter Biden more than $83,000 despite him having limited to no experience in the energy industry. All of this raises more questions about whether President Biden used his political influence to benefit his son Hunter's business dealings. Trump advisor Peter Navarro is facing prison time this morning after a jury found him guilty of 2 counts of contempt of Congress on Thursday. Navarro claims that he withheld documents and testimony subpoenaed by the Congressional January 6th committee in line with President Trump's claim of executive privilege.
I am willing to go to prison to settle this issue. I'm willing to do that, but I also know that the likelihood of me going to prison is relatively small because we are right on this issue.
Navarro says he plans to appeal. His conviction carries a penalty of up to 1 year in prison. He's scheduled to be sentenced January 12th. And check out this video from Hong Kong and South China. Look at this, folks. The region remains underwater this morning following the heaviest rain in at least 140 years. The historic rainfall was caused by typhoons, leaving behind waist-deep water in some places and flooding subway stations, shopping malls, as well as streets. Look at that. Wow. Hong Kong's Weather Bureau issued its highest rainstorm warning, saying that nearly 8 inches of rain was recorded in a matter of hours. As a result, schools were closed and workers were told to stay home. Apart from the economic pinch from property damage, there will likely be a broader economic impact as Hong Kong's stock exchange was forced to close. That's a quick check of your headlines. I'll have more news coming your way here shortly, but now let's get to the real sharpest dressed man, David Brody, as well as the most beautiful women on TV, Miranda Khan and Dr. Gina. Ladies.
Ooh. Look at these compliments just flying around this morning.
Wow.
All right, let's get to today's Bible verse from Jesus Calling. It says this: "These things I have spoken to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world." And that, of course, is from John 16:33. Wise words to us this morning. Check out this story, guys. Ron DeSantis losing support among wealthy donors. According to the reports, the Florida governor is hemorrhaging support among his wealthiest donors, and that's a big warning sign for his presidential run. A political analysis found that one of the 50 donors, who donated at least $160,000 to his previous campaigns, only 16, less than 1/3, have given to his super PAC that is called Never Back Down.
And ladies, joining us now is Mark Lauder, the communications director for the American First Policy Institute. Mark, great to have you on the show. You have been around these circles for a while. Sorry, I think I might have dated you or aged you a little bit. But look, you've worked for Mike Pence. You've worked for Donald Trump, obviously, quite a bit. Give us a sense of what's happening with Ron DeSantis. Literally, if I Google Ron DeSantis every day, there's like a negative headline, and this is the latest.
Yeah, this is not surprising. Look, these top donors are, for the most part, business people, and they expect a return on their investment. They're not seeing it. If you go back just a few months ago, Ron DeSantis was sitting at 30% in the Real Clear Politics average. Now that's half of that. Donald Trump is leading by 40%. What you see is the donor class realizing this is Donald Trump's nomination. He's going to be the nominee. So why do we keep wasting our money and pouring money down a losing cause? Because it's not going to change the outcome.
Yeah,
well, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. And I'm just curious, as a quick follow-up, Mark, what about where this donor money goes to? I mean, Donald Trump, for months now, Trump's campaign has been trying to get some of these donors that donated to DeSantis' reelection campaign to go with him. What's your sense of where this donor money is going to go? Tim Scott has been talked about, Nikki Haley, and of course, then there's Donald Trump, the de facto, in essence, person that's going to win the nomination. What's your view of where this money goes, Mark?
I think it'll be very difficult for any of the other candidates to peel off that support for the exact reason that Ron DeSantis is losing it. People are realizing that this nomination is all but finished. It's Donald Trump's nomination. He will be the nominee. So I think some of these donors are likely to sit on the sidelines for a little while and maybe not get involved as much in the primary. Some of them will go full in and obviously support the president. But I think as we get closer and closer to the general election, much easier case to make to this donor class. Do you want the president who brought us high inflation, high gas prices, the chaos and crisis at the southern border, or do you want the guy who put America first and fixed all of it the first time? Much easier for them to get on board when it's mano-a-mano with Donald Trump and Joe Biden round two.
Mark, I want to ask you, Tara Dahl, who we're going to be speaking with a little bit later, is going to a Trump rally in South Dakota. Kristi Noem is expected to endorse Trump, at least that's what we're hearing. We interviewed Kristi Noem, the governor there, yesterday. What do you anticipate? Because there's been a lot of speculation that she may be one of his top picks for vice president. Do you think that's highly likely, given your closeness with President Trump?
Well, it wouldn't surprise me. Kristi Noem is a very, she's an amazing leader, and she's doing a great job in South Dakota. She is obviously putting herself out there very well on the national stage. But the one thing I would tell you is that for every vice president, whether it's with Donald Trump, whether it's on the Democrat side, you can go back decades, and this is all true. The vice president pick fills an expected hole or supports an expected weakness in every presidential campaign. They bring a state alongside. They close a demographic gap. They offer some sort of a background and experience that the nominee, the presidential nominee, may be lacking in. So the question is, whether it's Kristi Noem or anyone else that's being discussed out there, what hole do they fill? What area do they support? That's really the secret sauce when we get into what I like to call the Veep stakes.
Well, so let me ask you, speaking of the secret sauce, who do you think has the best flavor based on everyone that you've seen so far? And it can be outside people that we actually saw at the first presidential debate.
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, it won't surprise you. Obviously, I think Governor Noem is up there. I think Senator Tim Scott, I think, would be very impressive in that role. I've heard the name Byron Donalds thrown around a little bit. And so, I think there are many great candidates that President Trump would be able to choose from. The one thing I would say is that as we look forward, this is a little bit of a different situation than we were in 2015, 2016, because the vice presidential nominee will then go on and probably be the presidential nominee 2 years later to run in 2028, because obviously President Trump would be term limited. So you've got to have someone that's got some national standing that can quickly get in there and actually show the world they can do the job, not because you're the so-called heartbeat away, but because you're our leading nominee 2 years later.
To your point about Ron DeSantis, Mark, can he resurrect himself? Because I know many in our audience say he's dead to me politically. He could run for dog catcher. I wouldn't vote for him. And before this, he was my favorite governor and my top pick for president in 2028. But a lot of people now feel like maybe they can't even trust him. Your thoughts?
Well, I'll tell you, MAGA world can be very brutal and can also be very forgiving. I remember little Marco Rubio Rubio and Lion Ted Cruz, who are now, two of our most stalwart supporters out there on so many issues. So, if we're talking about 2028 or beyond, Governor DeSantis is young. I think he's got an opportunity to rebuild that credibility with the MAGA base if he handles it correctly. But the question is going to be, what are you willing to do between now and when this nomination is secured for 2024 that will really set the course for what your future might look like down the road in the party?
Mark Lauder, always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us. Please come back again. President Trump heads to South Dakota, as we mentioned today, for a Republican rally. But is he really in search for his running mate? You heard what Mark Lauder thought. We're going to have the latest details coming up next.
But next, a new CNN poll spells out bad news for Biden. Negative job ratings and concerns about his age are front and center as he gears up for 2024. It's ahead on American Sunrise.
Thank God it is Friday. We appreciate you waking up with us here on American Sunrise, 15 minutes past the top of the hour. Well, folks, things just don't look good for President Biden. I know, duh, right? Yeah. Here's the headline, though. CNN poll, Biden faces negative job ratings and concerns about his age as he gears up for 2024. According to that poll, President Biden faces negative job ratings, widespread concerns about his age, and decreased confidence among Democratic-aligned voters. Taking a closer look at the numbers here, 67% of respondents say the party should nominate someone other than Biden for the 2024 White House. That's up from 54% in March. There is definitely more passion across the aisle, though, as Republicans and Republican-leaning voters are more deeply driven to vote in 2024. 71% say they're extremely motivated to vote versus 61% of Democratic-aligned voters. So, Dr. Gina, I pose you this first question. Are these numbers more of a referendum on Joe Biden or an endorsement of Donald Trump?
Well, I mean, I think it's both, honestly. I think that Joe Biden has been a shockingly horrific regime. It's been, I remember the first couple of months in, I saw Donald Trump at dinner and I said, "Are you surprised?" He said, "Shocked." Even he couldn't believe how bad Joe Biden was and how fast things got horrible for us in this country. But I think Donald Trump having such a proven and comparable, easily comparable record, in other words, it's exactly the opposite of Joe Biden, right? Makes him such the clear choice for voters. I think voters are thinking, look, I remember $1.50 gas or whatever it was. I remember feeling like our borders were finally being secured. I remember not worrying about terrorism anymore. We want those days back. And that's the vision that Donald Trump embodies for most Americans.
Miranda?
Don't you think so?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that the most telling of this is not just that 2/3 of Democrats don't want him to be president, but this poll was done by CNN.
Yeah.
So let's just throw that out there. I think that's a big deal, and it says a lot. I mean, it's pretty tough to beat President Carter, and he's done it as far as failures.
Yeah.
Right? Wouldn't you say so, David? I mean, that's it's pretty bad.
It's not good when Jimmy Carter looks good now after Biden is now on the scene. That's not a good sign if you're Biden. Look, if you're a Biden White House guy or a campaign guy and you're looking at these numbers, where's the bright light? There are none. I've gone through the poll. I've seen what it looks like. Enthusiasm is way down. Confidence has dropped almost 20 points just in the last 4 or 5 months. I mean, anywhere you look, it does not matter. And the most telling part of this is you've mentioned Terrance and Miranda, Gina, 67%, wait for it, of Democrats don't want Biden to run. 67. This is like an intervention. I mean, we're literally seeing like an intervention, like that reality series.
Yes.
What was it back in 2005? Intervention. Like everybody has to gather around Joe and whisper and say, "Joe, it's time. It's time. Leave, Joe. Leave." That's what's going on here, folks.
Numbers are so
But
interesting.
is it though? But is it though? Because I think my feeling is that the powers that be, and I guess this is just from kind of spending so much time behind the scenes in politics as I have in my life, I think that all the consultants, the Obamas of the world, the Soroses of the world, I think they love that they have a listless puppet that they can use to do their dirty deeds, and he takes all the heat, and then eventually they can just throw him out, right, and go elect their next person that they can control. But you have to admit, this has been a very effective presidency in terms of just shooting our country into the depths of communism like never before.
Okay,
Yeah,
I was
success
giving you
when
the
it comes
side
to
eye there for a minute,
failures.
Dr. Gina, about effective presidency. I was like, where is she going with this one?
Yeah, if you're trying to
Somebody get the hook and get Gina off that couch.
I know.
Play
I
the
mean,
music, cue the music.
for creating the most crises, right?
Well, I mean, and killing the most Americans. I mean, the list goes on and on. I mean, we have fast-tracked into tyranny like I didn't even think was possible. And without Joe Biden there to kind of take all of this and do all of the bidding of the radical left, I don't think it would happen. I think they want him there.
Can I get 10
ahead,
seconds
David.
real quick just to say, and you're telling me that if Joe Biden somehow, some way, quote, air quote, wins a second term, you're telling me with all of these numbers that something's not up? Come on, we're not stupid. I mean, give me a break. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. But here's the thing. They have made Biden is like a placeholder for what the Democrat apparatus does. And let's be honest, they do it well when it comes to ballot harvesting. They do it well. And Republicans need to get with the program on that.
Yep. All right, we heard what we think. What do you think? Let us know. Join us on social media. Coming up, President Trump is headed to South Dakota for what is expected to be a huge rally. But is there more to the story than whipping up the party faithful?
And Harrison Floyd was arrested in Georgia as part of the scheme that saw charges lodged against President Trump. So why was he the only person to be locked behind bars? Well, he'll be here as American Sunrise continues.
This news break is brought to you by AMAC, Association of Mature American Citizens.
And welcome back to American Sunrise. You're looking at an aerial view of Atlanta, Georgia, obviously a focal point when it comes to politics right now, more so than it should be. We're going to be speaking with Donna Fiducia, host of Cowboy Logic, a little bit later, who is basically based in Georgia and is on top of all this Fani Willis nonsense that's going on. But for right now, we want to check in with our friend.
Yeah, let's get to some headlines that are sponsored, once again, by AMAC.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can write the course of America.
President Biden's push to erase student loan debt for millions of Americans fell flat this year. However, there are hundreds of thousands of American senior citizens who could use a break on their student loans. There are reports this morning that some 114,000 Americans have had their Social Security payments garnished because they couldn't pay off their student loans. One 74-year-old says that she took out a $5,000 student loan while she was in her 20s. Due to life circumstances, she couldn't repay it and now owes more than $55,000, or 11 times what she borrowed. Think tank New America says the number of American senior citizens who still have student loan debt has gone up sixfold since 2004. Making matters worse, the amount owed is up 19-fold, with 3.5 million seniors owing a collective $125 billion in student loans. The Georgia Special Grand Jury report that led to President Trump and 18 others being indicted on racketeering charges is expected to be released as soon as today. That report will offer insight about how closely Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis followed the recommendations from the grand jury in her indictments, or whether she wandered off the legal reservation, so to speak. In the meantime, President Trump's lawyers are reportedly considering a motion to move his Georgia case to federal court. It's believed that federal court would be a more favorable venue for the 45th president because he'd have a more politically diverse jury pool, and he could argue that he is immune from prosecution for actions that were part of his official duties as president. Happening tonight, former Proud Boys leader and convicted seditionist Enrique Tarrio plans to spill the beans about his 22-year prison sentence and how the FBI tried to get him to flip on President Trump. Following an exclusive conversation with Tarrio, the Gateway pundit quotes Tarrio as saying DOJ prosecutors asked him to lie about President Trump in order to indict him. The former Proud Boy claims that prosecutors even tried to coerce him into signing a false statement swearing, quote, through several degrees of separation and connections, Tarrio had communicated with Trump regarding plans for January 6th. Hear Tarrio's side of the story for yourself tonight at 8 Eastern on the Gateway Pundit's Twitter space. All right, there's a lot more making headlines this morning. Those headlines, of course, brought to you by AMAC. Now, let's check in with my good friend David Brody, who is also feeling blue this morning. He's just more periwinkle.
That's right. Blue, periwinkle. I don't know. I don't understand the colors. I'm not a big color spectrum guy. Look, tonight, Friday night, South Dakota, it's a red state, 3 electoral votes. Why is Donald Trump in South Dakota? It's not a place he needs to be. Oh, wait, there's a fundraiser tonight for the state Republican Party. Okay, that's fine, but it's still a red state. Oh, wait, Kristi Noem will be there. She's been talked about as a potential vice presidential pick for Donald Trump. She was on this very show, American Sunrise, yesterday, and this is what she had to say. Have a look.
Well, he and his team have not asked, so I think that's always a good thing to clarify. We haven't even had that conversation. So there are many people that are out there being talked about and speculated about, but I think every single American, if they're asked to do something, they need to consider it, that they need to look at what they can do to play a part in saving this country. For me, every day I get up and I try to live a life of significance. I don't like to miss opportunities to do what I can for other people. So that'll be a part of the conversation and the consideration at that time. But they have not asked, and so therefore that talk hasn't happened.
And, of course, Real America's Voice on the ground in South Dakota. Also on the ground, Tara Dahl, who, of course, will be covering tonight's big event in South Dakota. She joins us now from Rapid City, South Dakota. Tara, I've got to tell you, look, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that Kristi Noem, Donald Trump, on stage tonight, a source close to Kristi Noem is indeed telling me that she will endorse Donald Trump tonight. What is your take as to what we're going to see transpire?
Yeah, David, good morning. It's good to be with you. That's what the word is, that she is going to give that endorsement to President Trump at the rally. It's a sold-out rally. People are excited here in South Dakota. We were out on the street yesterday talking to people, and Kristi Noem, she has the support of the people here. They love her and definitely is going to be considered, I believe, as a VP pick, and definitely otherwise will serve in the cabinet in some capacity. She's done such a great job in the state of South Dakota. She's known to, low taxes here, job openings. So people are coming to South Dakota. You can smell the freedom in the air, David.
For sure. Tell us a little bit more about the rally. I say it's a rally, but it's really a fundraiser for the state Republican Party. Tell us a little bit more about what we can expect tonight.
Yeah, it's a fundraiser. It is the Monumental Leaders Rally Dinner. President Trump is coming. Kristi Noem is going to be there. There's 6,000 seats, and they had to add additional seating. It's at the Convention Center in Rapid City. President Trump was here last when he went to the July 4th at Mount Rushmore and the big fireworks that year. So people are excited to see him. We had an opportunity, David, yesterday to go out into Keystone, which is right by Mount Rushmore, and we were talking to the people on the street, and they are very concerned about the direction of the country, and they were very concerned and very vocal, very honest, even emotional about just how they feel that this administration is destroying our country. They're excited for the rally. They're excited. People had tears in their eyes because they're looking forward to being at this Trump rally tomorrow. So there's a lot of excitement in the air here on the streets in South Dakota.
Well, I've been out to Mount Rushmore, and I know of Keystone, and I'm glad you were there because that is the heartland of the country, and that is the pulse of America. Sorry, AOC and the Bronx. That's not the pulse of the country, and neither is L.A. Out there in La La Land. Hey, let me turn real quick to, in a couple days, it will be 9/11, 22nd anniversary. Talk to me a little bit about what you will be covering that day for Real America's Voice, and some of your thoughts regarding the coverage.
Yeah, we will be in New York City. We'll be covering the 22nd anniversary of September 11th, 2001, the greatest terrorist attack that has hit American soil. We will be talking to people, doing some interviews, but really to keep in mind what's going on when we go into this 22nd anniversary. Let's take a look at where we're at in the United States right now as far as, do you feel like we're safer before 9/11 or after 9/11, 22 years later? And we're not safer we're at a pre-9/11 stage in America. When you look at the border, and another thing, we talked to people yesterday, and one of the number one concerns, David, was the border and the security of the United States. So as we head into September 11th on Monday, it's the security of the United States that our Americans are concerned about. And you look at the open border situation right now, and you look at the threats that are coming in and the injustice that the families of 9/11 still have not received. You still look at Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, who's still serving in Guantanamo Bay 22 years later. He still has not received the death sentence. He has 4 co-conspirators that are there with him, and he still hasn't had the death sentence yet. And another key point that we're going to be covering, too, is just the justice for the families. We still, last week on Wednesday, there were 43 people that were added, first responders, to the memorial of those that have passed from illnesses of responding to 9/11. It's not talked a lot about, David, is that we're still losing those first responders that were there on the scene, that laid down their lives to respond, to save other American lives, and that had the toxic fumes, the smoke, and they're suffering from that. And so that is, and they're not getting the congressional support. And that was some of the things that we were hearing from the people here yesterday on the street, was just how the abandonment of Americans. And now we're sending billions over to Ukraine, but they've completely abandoned Americans. And that's what we will be discussing.
Great to see you up against a hard break. Once again, you'll be in South Dakota tonight for Real America's Voice. And of course, on Monday, we'll have coverage here
at 7 p.m.
Sounds good. All right. Tara Dahl there in Rapid City, South Dakota. We are back on American Sunrise with a whole lot more, including The state of California, Oigavolt, that's where I say that. They might be known as a place where COVID mandates are born and never go away, but in a moment, we're going to tell you about one town that has taken a stand against the hysteria. And also ahead, the death of a singer. We know him, Jimmy Buffett. He brought skin cancer awareness back to the forefront of everyone's mind. In moments, what you need to know so you don't become a victim. We're back in a moment.
Welcome back. Nice shot of Wichita, Kansas, my home state there, the heartland. Time now to take stock in our health with stories brought to us by the Wellness Company. So the Huntington Beach, California City Council voted 4-3 to ban COVID mask and vaccine mandates amid mounting pressure to return to pandemic policies. Thank goodness. Those who have tested positive for COVID, however, will still be required to wear a mask in certain settings. The beach is not one of them. COVID cases have been on the rise in Orange County, Los Angeles County, again, according to Health Department data. The number of hospitalization also rising with nearly 1,700 COVID positive people reported statewide. Again, if you trust those numbers.
Now from your economy to your health, singer Jimmy Buffett's death brought skin cancer awareness back to the front lines of our health concerns. And there are some basic facts we should all know about skin cancer and how we can avoid it, and some surprising ones too.
Yeah.
The most common type of skin cancer is caused by damage from UV light, reportedly. The most common type of skin cancer that is caused by that is hard to know whether the best products are out there to protect your skin, because we've been told a lot of different things, such as wear sunscreen. Well, sunscreen use has become more popular, and as it has, instances of skin cancer have actually skyrocketed. Since modern day sunscreen hit the market in the 1960s, instances of skin cancer have risen from fewer than 5 per 100,000 people, right, to currently over 40 per 100,000. Now, for those quick math minds out there, that is an 800% increase since sunscreens came on the market.
Right. So some people are speculating that it's the chemicals in the sunscreen that are actually causing the cancer. So the very thing that you're using to protect yourself is the very thing that's hurting you. We're going to talk more about that. We have a special guest coming up a little bit later to kind of help clear the air.
Yeah.
Separate fact from fiction. That's what we really need.
Right. And some believe the use of sunscreen enables people to stay in the sun longer, and that might be causing more long UV exposure. Yeah. Many brands of sunscreen were actually pulled off of the shelves recently because they contain known cancer-causing chemicals. I was just reading articles about this. So there are a lot of unanswered questions.
Yes, and we're going to help clear some of those up for you because still summertime, it's hot out there, and it's really confusing. I know, like, that's the thing I always hated about being in news, and you people know this, where you have, like, a news anchor come on air and say, drinking coffee has been known to help boost this, and then the very next day, drinking coffee could kill you.
But those statistics, an 800% increase since the advent of sunscreen, make me very, and when you look at the chemicals in it, benzene is one of them, and
they're not all the
sunscreen.
Same.
No, they're not all the same, and there are lots of chemicals that do. You know, I read something in one of the articles I was reading that said, don't put anything on your skin that you wouldn't put in your mouth. That's interesting because it is absorbed into your bloodstream, and they found it in breast milk, in urine, and in blood samples of people who just applied it to their skin. So
good advice. But apart from sunscreen, there are some risks to watch out for. Obviously, exposure to UV light from the sun or tanning beds. Too much of it, because obviously you need some, because that has vitamin D.
Right, and we're always hearing about how people are having a deficit in vitamin D these days, and that's causing health problems.
Right, so we're going to help clear the air on all of those things coming up. But this is a good reminder that, you know, to have an emergency kit on you as well, that from our wellness company. So we're going to get to some of that if we can. Wonderful kit. It has ivermectin in it. This is what you do need. So this has been proven and will help you. This is a great kit. And here's the thing. You can use this code, RAB, and you're going to save yourself 10%. So if you find yourself in a panic, you want peace of mind, this was created by people who know what they're talking about. So you can go to twc.health/RAB today. You can use that code at checkout to get your emergency kit, and you get 10% off. So this could be just anything. Poison ivy, like I said, ivermectin in there. There's zinc in there. There's a bunch of different things. Z-Pack is what I meant to say.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, and I love about it that it comes with a full instruction book. So whatever your problem is, you'll be able to figure out exactly what you need to do. All right, let's check in with David, who is standing by with a special guest. David?
Ladies, thanks. It's now the case of Harrison Floyd. You may know all about his case. He's one of those 19, the Georgia 19, those Georgia defendants down there in the Trump trial that really has sucked in all of these folks, as you see there on screen. He was held without bond for 6 days. Everybody else out on bond, not Harrison Floyd. What in the world is going on? There's a lot of questions around that. One of two black defendants in the case. And to get more on that, we are joined by Harrison Floyd right now on American Sunrise. Harrison, great to have you on the show.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, look, there's so many questions here about what in the world is going on with Fani Willis. Help us through this. I know you originally did not have a lawyer with you originally because of the extravagant cost of having a lawyer that really would have hurt you financially and your family. Let's start there and go from there.
Yeah, no problem. But if I can first, before I speak about me, I just want to do two things. First, give all the honor and glory to God and thank him and all the great who came forward to help me. Second, we need to bring attention to something. Just yesterday, it was announced that a sixth inmate in 6 weeks at Fulton County Jail has passed away. His name was Chandre Delmore. He was 24 years old. He'd been sitting in Fulton County Jail since April 1st, and he was sitting there simply because he could not afford 10% of a $2,500 bond. That's $250. I think his life was worth way more than that. Where's Black Lives Matter on this? Where's Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton on this? But most importantly, where's Governor Kemp on this? Where's District Attorney Fani Willis? And where's the sheriff on this? Why aren't people solving this problem and fixing that jail? So since other people won't, I've spoken with my attorneys, and we're going to step up and lead by example. over this weekend, everything that we raise for my defense fund, I'm going to use next week to go down and bail some people out of Fulton County Jail. So we are going to host a Twitter Spaces this evening at 7 p.m. Eastern. If you have a loved one or someone who is in Fulton County Jail for a non-violent misdemeanor, they're sitting there simply because they cannot afford bail, please join the Spaces. We want to know who you are and identify you and see if with whatever funds we're able to raise, if we're able to help. We would love to prioritize people with children and especially women because their demographic typically has a harder time getting bail and bond. To go more into your question, look, if before I had gotten arrested, if someone had come forward and told you, hey, here in the United States of America, you can go before a judge, tell them you can't afford a lawyer, and they will not appoint one to you. They will deny you bond and bail for no reason, that this criminal justice system is corrupt, that you would say, I don't know about that. Well, guess what? My experience broadcasts that for the world and for people to be able to see that this two-tier justice system, which the African-American community has been crying about for a long time, is indeed real. It's very, very real. And it's definitely happening predominantly the Black community, but now it's being spread. It's no longer discriminating on race. It's discriminating on political affinity.
Well, let me read you an actual quote that you have said just recently. You have said here, and let me get it to you, that you've talked about racism specifically being an issue when it comes to Fani Willis and the way she's gone about this, or at least that's been part of the issue. Explain that more, Harrison.
District Attorney Willis is not in control of this. She is a puppet of white liberals in Washington, D.C. She's doing what they want her to do. If you look, we see the same thing across the country when it comes to the president with the district attorneys, Alvin Bragg in New York, as well as the AG in New York. They are using these Black liberal jurists to bring about further discourse and tear down our judicial system. They're using them. She is a puppet of these racist liberals. And so she sent me what we call in our community a Negro wake-up call to scare other Blacks, to prevent them from deigning to think for themselves and to look into more other policies outside of the Democrat platform.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about, I want to go back to what you said originally, and I wonder if the two tie, clearly it seems like the two tie together. The person you're talking about that died at the Fulton County Jail, I'm assuming, was he Black? And also I'm curious about what the actual conditions in the jail are. You were there, you know the deal.
Yes, he was a Black male. His name was Chandre Delmore. He was 24 years old. The one previous to him, right after I got out, was another Black male who was stabbed to death in the jail. Look, the conditions of the jail are what they are, not because of the officers who serve in the jail. They were very polite and kind to me, but because of the failed leadership of Fulton County and, quite frankly, the failed leadership of the government in Georgia. They are not stepping forward. Governor Kemp, I'm just going to be frank, he's afraid of Fani Willis because she's a Black woman who's a district attorney. He doesn't want to be called racist. That doesn't mean you don't step up and do your job, Governor. He knows what he can do. He knows what he should do. He needs to step up and do the right thing and intervene here. The people dying is 6 people in 6 weeks. This is not okay. You need to step up and do something. And if you can't do your job, Governor, you need to step aside and let somebody else who will do it.
30 seconds or so, Harrison, but let me understand. Originally, a public defender was not assigned to you based on income levels and all that, but then a judge said, yeah, we'll give you a public defender, but now you're with a private attorney, right? And tell me a little bit about some of the money raised online from a crowdfunding standpoint for you.
Isn't that funny how I requested a public defender, they said no, and then they came forward because they didn't like what they did and said that they wanted to give me one. They denied me my constitutional rights. But I'm just so blessed and thankful that everyone who came forward and donated to my GoFundMe did so. And they left comments. It really helped my family. Because of that, District Attorney Willis saw how much money was being raised, got scared, and called my lawyer and said, get him out of jail now, because the public is speaking up, the public is waking up, and we're not standing for this. We cannot stand for our civil rights and constitutional rights to be disenfranchised like this. This is the first step down a very, very slippery slope.
Harrison Floyd, great to have you on the show. Thanks so much for being here. Appreciate you. Good luck to you. Appreciate him being here on American Sunrise. All right, when we come back, it's time to stay awake, not woke. We do it all the time. And then the question is, when is your home safe, not secure? How about when the FBI, unlawfully asked for its combination? That's right. It's a story that has MAGA angry. It's next as American Sunrise continues.
You know what that means. That means it's time for our Stay Awake, Not Woke segment, sponsored by Beard Vet Coffee. BeardVet.com is how you get there. You use the promo code RAV for your 10% off.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Terrance.
All right, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to kind of interrupt here, but our Stay Awake, Not Woke story is this. Liberty Safe is under fire from MAGA conservatives this morning. One safe owner in Arkansas had his home raided by the FBI, and the FBI asked Liberty Safe Company for the code to the man's safe, and they gave it to him. Therein lies the problem, right? Liberty Safe released a statement that said they were happy to comply, although they did not mention whether or not they would be changing the name of their company from Liberty Safe to Tyranny Safe. The man whose home was raided is a J6 defendant, and J6ers, of course, are always second-class citizens these days, it appears. So, guys, what good is a safe if the manufacturer will give out the combination and just let anybody or any letter-named agency in, right? Miranda, since you were chuckling, I'll start with you.
I agree 100%. I think this has just ruined their reputation. I'll be curious to see how many people drop them.
Yeah.
Because of this incident. I would, wouldn't you?
I I mean, here's the thing. I said this yesterday, but I really feel strongly. They didn't have a choice. If you tell, you're going to tell the government no? The fact that the government, the problem is not the safe company. The problem is that the government thinks it's entitled to come in and tell companies that they have to do things like that. And if they can do it to them, they can do it to any other safe company. This is why I believe you put your safe under your floor. You have it built into your wall. You can't go buy a safe anymore, unfortunately, from a company that's going to be forced by the government to give away your codes.
But going to your point, yes, you can say no. Elon Musk did, didn't he, David?
Well, yeah, he did. But let me just go back quickly to this point because let's not forget this is a J6er, and if you put J6er and the FBI in the same sentence, we know the problems that's going to be for the J6ers. And I can tell you specifically, there is a person that I've known for 20 plus years. He's now all grown up. He went into the Capitol on January 6th for 1 minute and 10 seconds. The FBI raided his home on misdemeanor charges. Didn't do anything. Didn't assault anybody. Didn't do anything. Didn't break anything. Misdemeanor assault just because he went into the Capitol. FBI, guns at his door, the whole thing. And by the way, someone called a tip line on him, an FBI tip line, tipped off the FBI that he was in the Capitol. And all of a sudden, for 2 years, he was just arrested. 2 years. For the last 2 years, the FBI has been monitoring all of his social media everywhere. And, of course, we know this. He's not the only one. It happens to all these J6ers.
All the time.
And this is the problem. This is the issue. It's really about the FBI and what you were saying, Gina, the overstep here.
I think this is...
But one more thing real quickly, if I can. In answer to you about Elon Musk, they're still going after Elon Musk. They haven't stopped. That's why the government is the one that has to be stopped, not the safe company. And, again, we need to take matters into our own hands, put your safe stuff, have your own thing built so that nobody has the code except you. Go ahead, Terrance, sorry.
No, I was just going to say this is another example of the government just bullying companies and bullying the American people into complying. And to your point about building a safe in the floor or something like that, I'm cheap, so I'm just going to put it all under my blanket and under my mattress and call it a day.
I'll be right over. I'll be right over, Terrance.
Yeah, exactly.
You just don't know which mattress. Aha.
That's right. That's right. All right. Well, up next, finding faith in the darkest of times. Monday marks the 22nd anniversary of the terror attacks on America that left almost 3,000 Americans dead and tore a piece of the fabric of our country. That is next. We'll talk about it. Back in a moment. moment of faith for patriots all across our country. This is a rough weekend, both mentally and spiritually. The 22nd anniversary of the terror attack on the World Trade Center and the Pentagon killed close to 3,000 people, but scarred our entire nation. As we continue to mourn, how do we find closure, or will we ever find closure? Well, joining us now is Pastor Victor Marx. Pastor Marx, it's a huge honor, honestly, to have you here with us. You've become one of my favorite people, as my daughter worded it, one of those people that the more I get to know him, the more I appreciate him. I know my husband feels the same way, my sons. How do we help this nation heal when now there are young people that weren't alive, don't remember anything about what even happened?
Yeah, Gina, I think it's in the remembering. There's power and comfort in remembering those that were lost. And there's comfort and hope in remembering those that are still alive that were deeply affected by the loss, from family to first responders. And I think it's important, just like you said, we have a whole generation of young people that really are not familiar with this incident, because I think our broken education system does a good job of countering a solid message of the reality of our history. But it's also a time for our nation to consider, how will we absolutely stop this from happening again? And that's something that has to be addressed.
It does need to be addressed, Pastor, because, we've heard from so many people who are experts when it comes to national security. And again, I don't even think you have to be an expert when you see that our borders are wide open and that a record number of terrorists that we know of have made their way across. We've heard from multiple people that we're no safer now than we were back then. And that is scary to hear that. And yet we're sending billions of dollars to protect Ukraine's borders, but not our own.
Yeah, Miranda,
but I want to ask you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I've got 17 pumps into Iraq or Syria in the work that we do. And, one of the things that Iraqis would tell us is you have to secure your borders. Look what's happened to Iraq that ISIS was able to invade. And we've been on the border, and we've seen military-age men coming in. So I can say this with complete confidence and solid intelligence. There are cells of very bad people that are in the U.S., and the American people, they just got to pay attention and then take a stand, because it will be too late. Just like the Twin Towers and the Pentagon that was hit, it will be too late.
Yeah, Pastor, at a certain point, for sure.
Yeah, Pastor, I wanted to ask you, it's estimated that 22 veterans take their lives each day, and that more military personnel die by suicide than they actually do in combat. September is Mental Health Awareness Month, but I believe that faith has to be a part of that to help people heal. Mm-hmm. And when we look at the disastrous Afghanistan withdrawal, a lot of people are hurting. Some of the people that are responsible for 9/11, the Biden administration is not being tough on, and that's hurting a lot of families out there. And then going to what you just said, that terrorism could be on the rise again here in the United States. What would you say to people who are battling all of that right now?
Yeah, and that's a really good assessment. I speak at military bases all the time. I was just looking at my notes. I spoke 16 times in 2 days to military personnel. And it's not only veterans, but suicides among active duty military person is at an all-time high. And it's the lack of morale. It's the lack of hope. And really, it stems from, because we're resilient, warriors are resilient, but it stems from bad leadership that creates, and it really guts the ability to have courage and forge forward when you have bad leaders. And just like what they're doing with the identity of removing, the correct he or himself, themselves. This is a very sad time in the U.S. military and veterans. And I'll just say this. I talk with some of the older lions, and we say, who would you rather fight? a 20-year-old or a guy from 40 to 60, that age group, and resoundingly, they're saying would rather fight the 20-year-old. So because there's this passivity and this messaging in our country, so what that does, that adds to the lack of morale when you have older guys who have put it on the line, don't see younger men because of our culture coming up. Right. And I can tell you, I don't think we're able to withstand an internal attack in the U.S. right now.
Well, he's a veteran. He works with veterans all the time. He can grab a gun right out of someone's hand, pointing it at them. It's the most amazing move you've ever seen in your entire life. My sons are enamored with this. He works on the issue of the largest sex slave trade in human history every single day of his life, and he pours it out and goes to dangerous people, dangerous places all the time. Give us your website really quickly, Pastor, before we go.
Yeah, Victor Marks with an X, victormarks.com. People can find out what we do and why we do it to protect children and hunt pedophiles.
All right, Pastor Victor Marks, thank you so much. The second hour of American Sunrise continues in just a moment. We'll be right back. Coming up on the second hour of American Sunrise, a serious case of confusion. Why is Joe Biden commemorating September 11th in Alaska? Find out.
A new poll has President Biden's approval rating dropping like a downed Chinese spy balloon. Ahead, why more than 2/3 of Democrats say they want a candidate other than Joe Biden for the White House. That story coming up.
And later, 6 Republican lawmakers file a lawsuit to remove President Trump from the 2024 ballot in Colorado. Can you say rhino? Find out why when American Sunrise continues.
We've got your back as you start your day.
Articulating what the majority of Americans feel today, and I really appreciate that you do.
Y'all tell the truth.
You guys are our voice.
We watch every morning while getting ready for work.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Gina. Hour 2 of American Sunrise. We're so happy to be with you.
Ooh, it goes by fast. Happy Friday, everyone. Good morning to you. We are coming to you live from West Palm Beach, and joining us live from D.C. is the one, the only, David Brody.
Ladies, great to see you yet again for the second hour of American Sunrise. And let me just say, Joe Biden and this Alaska situation with 9/11, I mean, talk about the blunderer in chief. I mean, it's just like one blunder after another. We're going to get to all of that. But first, Terrance Bates, who never blunders. I mean, he might blush, but he doesn't blunder. He's in Denver with the headlines.
Well, if you see me blush, wow, call somebody. I promise you, call somebody. All right, let's get to this morning's headlines, folks, and there really is a lot to talk about. A newly uncovered European Union memo praising then Ukrainian prosecutor Viktor Shokin's efforts to deal with corruption, organized crime, and human trafficking is shedding some new doubt about then Vice President Joe Biden's explanation for forcing Shokin's firing. Our friends at Just the News are reporting EU countries had largely reached consensus that Ukraine and Shokin had met their goals of fighting and investigating large-scale crimes. At the same time, Biden threatened to withhold U.S. aid for Ukraine unless Shokin was fired. Well, the then vice president argued Shokin wasn't fighting corruption aggressively enough. During this very same time period, though, Shokin was investigating energy company Burisma Holdings, which, of course, was paying Hunter Biden more than $83,000 despite him having limited to no experience in the energy industry. All of this raises even more questions about whether President Biden uses political influence to benefit his son Hunter's business dealings. Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis is calling out House Judiciary Chairman Jim Jordan, accusing him of interfering in a state criminal matter. Just a couple of weeks ago, the Ohio Republican accused Willis of bringing her case against President Trump for political reasons. He also requested documents about her office's use of federal funds and coordination that she had with any coordination that she had with the Department of Justice relative to her indictment against the 45th president. On Thursday, the Atlanta Journal and Constitution published Willis's written response in which she calls allegations that her prosecution is politically motivated, quote, unfounded. Willis also argues that constitutional law permits her to ignore Congressman Jordan's request. And finally, the latest version of the controversial COVID booster shots could be rolled out as soon as today. The Food and Drug Administration is reportedly ready to approve those updated shots. The latest booster is designed for the XBB 1.5 Omicron subvariant of the virus, which, by the way, is no longer the dominant strain. The approval comes as COVID infections and hospitalizations are reportedly on the rise. There is also talk that the FDA is exploring the possibility of granting the booster a full approval instead of an emergency use authorization, which would be a departure from previous COVID vaccine authorizations. That's a quick check of your headline. Now, let's get you back to that guy on the left. That would be David, as well as Gina and Dr. And I'm getting ready to call you Dr.
David's
Miranda.
on the left
Gina
now.
And Miranda. He is on my left.
Yeah. No, I'm on the right.
Oh, you know what? I didn't even think of it. I wasn't even thinking of it in that respect. I'm sorry, David.
Stage right, David. Stage right.
There you go.
Stage right.
There you go.
I'll tell you what, Terrance, I cannot believe what you told us just now about the vaccine that is going to get full approval that isn't even for the current strain of COVID.
Right. There's
and people
a
will still
possibility.
take it.
There's a possibility. There's talk that they're going to give it full approval, not an emergency use authorization. And as I said, and you pointed out, it's not even for the current dominant strain. Yep, got you scratching your head.
Unbelievable. I was gasping, wasn't I?
You were. I was like, are you going to be all right? She's fine, though. But something that's going to definitely upset some people to an event that has just many Democrats and Republicans alike shaking their heads in disbelief. Take a look at this. So if you're getting ready to head out the door, don't leave yet. You want to see this. Of all the places President Biden could have gone on 9/11 to, I don't know, observe, pay homage to those who died during the terror attacks, he has chosen to spend the 22nd anniversary of one of the darkest days in American history in Alaska. Just let that sink in. Nothing wrong with Alaska, but of all days.
Yeah, well, this is the first time a president has memorialized this dark day at a location other than the White House itself or the 3 attack sites, of course. Joining us now from that state is former U.S. Senate candidate Kelly Tshibaka. She's also the former commissioner of the Alaska Department of Administration. Kelly, we are told over and over by corporate media that creepy Uncle Joe is so compassionate and empathic that he he feels the pain of the American people. Good old Scranton Joe, right? Mm-hmm. But there are thousands of American families who mourn this date every year, who say, we'll never forget. But I guess Joe Biden forgot, Kelly?
I think that's a really good point, Dr. Gina, and our hearts and prayers go out to all the families and friends who directly lost people. We have to remember there are also thousands of people in our national security, our Department of Defense, our intelligence community who are still fighting against terrorists that are trying to attack our country even now. I spent over a decade in the intelligence community fighting against terrorist attacks. So this is an ongoing battle, and just so completely tone deaf by the president and absolutely offensive. This is what I think is happening. I think that this is about the 2024 election, and I know that that seems surprising. However, Alaska has one congressional seat. The Democrats picked it up for the first time in half a century in 2022. This is a top seat for them to maintain and a top pickup seat for the Republicans if they can get it. We've had a parade of Biden administration officials come through Alaska. Who'd have thunk we were so important? We've had Jill Biden. We've had the Transportation Secretary, the Interior Secretary, the EPA Administrator, the Assistant Secretary for Health, all in the last several months. And I know that this has largely been unobserved by the lower 48, but it has not been unobserved by the Biden administration. And so now we have the president himself coming through. This is not someplace that he needs to stop on the way back from Vietnam. This would be an easy flyover for them. They could have made it back in time for September 11th, but they're choosing not to. So not only do they want to pick up that seat, but I think something else that's going on is we have the emergence of the No Labels Party, a direct threat to Biden's reelection in 2024. It looks like Joe Manchin might be the nominee. And Joe Manchin is really great buddies with Senator Lisa Murkowski, who darted right out of the gate to endorse him as her candidate of choice if he's going to run against Joe Biden, her dear friend. I think that she would be a VP pick for him if Joe Manchin runs. And of course, if all these parade of officials are coming through Alaska, that sure ties up Senator Lisa Murkowski's time and takes away from a potential VP run.
Kelly, we have limited time. David Brody in D.C., you mentioned like could have done a flyover. It's true. I mean, or you could have just left the summit in India a day earlier, the Asia summit, excuse me, which makes no sense. But here's the other thing. You're going to go to Alaska, and overall energy prices are up 36% since Joe Biden took over. I've been to Anwar. I've been to Kaktovik. I've been to the North Slope. I mean, this is insane what his policies have done to America, and yet this is the place he's going to go. He can't even win politically there.
Worse than that, David. The administration has done over 50 direct executive orders and actions against our state to shut down our economy, including just this week, revoking leases they've already issued for drilling in Alaska in areas that they're required by statute and Congress to drill to protect our oil reserves and oil supply and domestic energy production in America. They just pulled them. They shut down all oil production in Alaska in these areas in the North Slope so that we would be dependent on our foreign enemies. This is not the time to stop in Alaska. We're not happy right now. So to your point, they've made us oil dependent on enemies. This is not the time. This is not a favorable stop.
Kelly, thank you so much for being with us. We would love to have more time with you. You'll have to come back soon. Up next, it's time to drain the swamp ahead of his trip to Alaska to commemorate 9/11. President Biden throws a wrench at the future of America's possible energy independence. That story coming up.
And later, 6 Republican lawmakers file a lawsuit to remove President Trump from the 2024 ballot in Colorado. Can we say rhino? Find out why when American Sunrise continues.
Drain the Swamp, sponsored by Sea of Mud. Go to seaofmud.com. Use promo code RAV1776. That will get you 15% off. They are a rural American patriotic apparel and other goods company. They are American made, and they have much more than t-shirts. As I said, they have knives, drinkware, swimwear that Terrance particularly loves. That swimwear.
He loves it.
And jewelry. David, what do you have for us out there in the swamp?
Well, we have so many stories teed up in the swamp. We could talk for hours and hours, days and days about swamp stories. But here's one. The Michigan Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, who I like to call a piece of work, she's talking about the 14th Amendment. She's saying this is far from resolved. You know this is already in the Michigan court system. The 14th Amendment stuff with Trump trying to get him off the ballot is not going to go away. And here's what she said to CNN the other day. Have a look.
Do you expect to have to make some kind of judgment before the Supreme Court weighs in about whether Trump shows up on the 2024 ballot in your state?
Potentially. I mean, our decision for the primary election plays out in just the next few months, and Nevada and several other states will be making decisions even before that. So we may see some decisions made prior to any clarity from the U.S. Supreme Court. But before it's all said and done, at the end of this, on the other side, the Supreme Court will make a determination. We just hope it's in time for us to ensure our ballots are printed effectively and correctly for any upcoming primary election. And then we anticipate potentially another run of it based on who gets nominated in the summer conventions next year. So this is far from resolved.
Terrance, you can pretty much put that in your headlines from now until, who knows, possibly Election Day.
No, absolutely. Colorado is another state that's dealing with a similar kind of challenge to try to get President Trump off the ballot. And in cases like this that are unresolved and where there are questions about the legal issues, why not err on the side of caution and keep the candidate that's in question on the ballot until there is an actual resolution to the legal question at hand? It seems like that would make sense, no?
Yeah, for sure. Ladies, before we get to break, I want to get your take on this next story. Once again, a swampy story, if I've ever heard one. This has to do with Alaska. We're back to talking about Alaska and those oil drilling, the oil drilling situation up there. Look at this headline. The Biden administration is canceling Alaska oil leases, protecting millions of acres in the Arctic Wildlife Refuge. Apparently, they're trying to protect the environment, but the truth of the matter is, ladies, and Gina, I'm curious to get your take here, but this is, or both of your takes, but this is exactly what's leading to the problems in America today. We have, what is it, millions of barrels. Let me get the exact figure. I mean, we've got 19 million acres out there and millions of barrels of oil, and yet crickets from the Biden administration. They're not doing a thing. Gina.
The job-killing Biden administration. That's who they are. They can dress it up. They can lie about it. He can call it Bidenomics all he wants. This is Bidenomics. This is what dealing with this administration has gotten for us. And you know what? We haven't even hit winter yet. Wait until we hit winter and people see their heating costs rise, their fuel costs rise. It's a disaster, and they know it, and that's why they're out there lying about it and trying to come up with things, because they think they can just lie to the American people, and we'll just sit down for it.
All right, we're going to have to take a quick break. Simmer down, Dr. Gina. We got our hot under the collar there. Up next, we're going to be talking about your money. People from coast to coast and around the world are flocking to online jobs these days ahead the potential dangers associated with so-called online gigging. That story and more when American Sunrise continues.
All right, it is time, isn't it? It feels like it should be time to go back to the villages, right? Because
I'm ready, sister.
I know you are. You were like, you're calling your husband. You're like, look, we're moving here. I don't care what you say. I'm ready. It
felt like the Midwest.
Fun.
That's what I loved about it. Yeah.
It does. If you haven't been, we're of course talking about the villages that are up north of Florida. It's one of the biggest. Well, I think it is the biggest community of seniors there, and we're hoping to go back there again soon.
145,000 seniors, 5,000 just in one of the Trump clubs.
Right,
amazing.
Exactly.
And that's, by the way, who invited us up there. We had a great time.
We did. All right, Terrance. Time now for a look at some of our economic headlines, right?
Absolutely, and there's so much to talk about. We'll start here. More and more people around the world are actually going to online jobs. It's so-called online gig workers. We're talking as many as 435 million of them globally. There's a new report out from the World Bank that estimates the number of so-called online gig workers is as many as 435 million, as I said. The demand for online workers also increased some 41% between 2016 and the first quarter of this year. However, workers' rights groups are raising some red flags about the lack of job protections in the online gig economy. The trend is that people hop from job to job because there is minimal job security and employment rights. However, the report also finds that online gigs are providing opportunities for women and young people in poorer countries where jobs are scarce. The World Bank estimates that roughly 90% of low-income countries' workforce is now in the informal sector like online. All right, now, that's your headline. That's your economic headline. Time to remember now one of the greatest musicians of all time.
I blew out my flip-flops, really did. I stepped on a pop-top. I broke my leg twice, I had to limp on back home. Fell off the stage, crashed the plane, good God.
Death of Jimmy Buffett last week was a reminder to all of us of the dangers of skin cancer. The singer was just 75 years old and was performing actually up until just months actually before his death. Now, the cancer that killed him was an aggressive and quick form of skin cancer, and a sort of a rare one, I believe, too. So what we want to know, we have lots of questions around this, honestly. So joining us now are dermatologists, in fact, my dermatologists and most surgeons, Dr. Andre Gergina and Dr. Amelia Doms. Welcome to both of you. First thing to you, Dr. Gergina, what was the exact form of skin cancer that killed Jimmy Buffett, and how rare is it, and what makes it different from other forms of skin cancer that you see in your practices?
Definitely. So what he had was something called Merkel cell carcinoma. But before that, thank you so much for having us on your show. This is so nice. It's beautiful here. Yes.
Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, definitely. So Merkel cell carcinoma is actually a very interesting topic because it's a very, very deadly form of skin cancer. It's also very rare, and it presents very innocuously. So it kind of looks very normal, like a cyst or an abscess. It looks like nothing much, but it's horrible to have. So it's actually the perfect storm. You know, in today's day and age, we have a lot of different treatments. But even with all of those treatments, the recurrent risk is very high. It tends to metastasize quite often, and survivability is only about 30%, only about 50% in the first 5 years.
Let me just follow up with that, Miranda, if I may. And are there particular warning signs on that? Because those are some scary things.
Yes.
You know, where does it occur most often? How can people know? Obviously, they need to get in and see their dermatologist. But I mean, cysts. Hello, people get cysts all the time. I woke up with one in my wrist today. I think I slept on it wrong, you know?
Exactly. So I think the last thing that I didn't mention is that it's exquisitely rare to have. So that's what makes it makes us breathe a sigh of relief, is that it's about 40 times less. We see it about 40 times less often as we do melanoma, which is also not, that common. So
genetic?
There are some genetics involved, but it's mostly actually UV dependent. So we see it in elderly patients, usually Caucasians, usually males, and it's usually on these UV dependent areas like the head and neck.
Got it.
All right, I have so many questions. We were talking about skin cancer earlier, and so many people are confused, right? We were talking about some of the research that there's been like an 800% increase in people being diagnosed with skin cancer, and that a lot of that some people attribute to the very thing that was supposed to protect us from skin cancer, and that is sunscreen. I have been on the fence with this. I don't use sunscreen that much anymore because I don't trust it. And I don't want to tell our audience to wear it unless we can trust it, but I know they're not all the same. So Bottom line.
Okay.
Tell us.
There's a lot of buzz and speculation around sunscreen. We do know that our population is aging. We know that a lot of these patients spent a lifetime in the sun. We hear it every day. Reflectors, baby oil, iodine. Baking on the beach. So now they've reached a point where they've had enough cumulative sun exposure, and although the awareness around sunscreen has grown, it doesn't negate the fact that they've already had that sun exposure. So there's a lot of unknowns around sunscreen. There's two different main types of sunscreen. There's physical blockers and chemical blockers. They act a little bit differently. They're both very effective in preventing the damage that comes with being exposed. But bottom line is you want something that's SPF 30 or more. You want something that's broad spectrum, something that covers UVA, UVB, and UVC light. And we do see a correlation. People who wear sunscreen have less skin cancer.
Okay. Real quick, though, just to follow up on that, zinc obviously is basically something you can ingest, right? That you can put. That's, I think, the basic rule for a lot of people is what can I ingest? If it's safe to ingest, then it's safe to put on my skin. But we're seeing benzene. I looked at one brand of vino. It's made by Johnson & Johnson. It has all kinds of cancerous chemicals in it. So are there some things we can use besides zinc that aren't sunscreens that are safe? Dr. Gergina, and real quickly, 20 seconds.
Not a problem. So the way that I think about this is, like Dr. Dancy was saying, we have physical and we have chemical. The physical ones I like to think of as wearing kind of like a liquid sand. So it's a barrier of protection that you don't see. And they're usually, like you said, zinc oxide or titanium dioxide.
Okay.
So these are just something that's see-through. They're elements, so you can just put them on. There's no real absorption. They're just protecting you. They're sort of balancing off the sun rays.
Got it. Okay.
So those are the
Perfect.
safest ones to wear.
Well, we got to get to Terrance in Denver. Thank you so much to both of you for being here. We have some headlines sponsored by AMAC.
The Association of Mature American Citizens is the conservative voice for Americans 50 and older. AMAC is fighting for the values that you hold dear. Join today. Together, we can write the course of America.
Well, the clapping is underway and the bell is getting ready to ring here momentarily, opening the markets on this final trading day of the week there on Wall Street. There you have it. The bell has now tolled. Let's see how the markets are. Right now, everything looking good. That's a good start to this Friday. The Dow Jones is up about 0.2%. The NASDAQ S&P 500 also in the green, showing slight gains to start this day of trading. Higher interest rates are really impacting the economic market as well as the real estate market. Not only is the demand for home mortgages down to a nearly 30-year low, but commercial real estate around the country is in distress with vacant spaces not being filled and investors hemorrhaging money quite literally.
It's really a double whammy effect, and it's showing very clearly in the housing market. It's really just a question of how long does it take before it really spills over more broadly into the wider economy.
That was Will Ryan, the founder and CEO of Granite Shares FTEs. This obviously is a huge deal as there are a number of issues going on right now in the housing market. So much happening that a lot of investors are a little jittery and making sure that they don't actually invest in housing. And in other news, Vladimir Putin called the U.S. dollar's drop in dominance, quote, objective and irreversible. He made that statement during the recent BRICS summit in South Africa. BRICS, of course, is made up of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. All of those groups formally agreed to use local currencies instead of the U.S. dollar. As demand for the dollar weakens, the buying power of the dollar also weakens, and that is why the Birch Gold Group is busier than ever these days. Investors and savers are looking to harness the power of physical gold that's held in tax-sheltered IRAs. You can do so simply by texting the word America to the number 989898 and get your free information kit on gold from the Birch Gold Group. Again, that's texting the word 989890 or texting the word America, to the number 989898 for your free information kit on gold. With thousands of satisfied customers, an A+ rating with the Better Business Bureau, and countless 5-star reviews, you can count on the Birch Gold Group to help you navigate transitioning an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold. As the U.S. dollar continues to receive pressure from foreign countries along with global digital currencies and central banks, you may want to arm yourself yourself with information on how to protect your savings, and you can do so simply by texting the word America to the number 989898 and claiming your free information kit on gold from the Birch Gold Group. Well, we're getting ready to head to break, folks. When we come back, it comes to the 2024 election. Things are really getting saucy. The latest is ahead as American Sunrise continues.
Finest, it's red, white, and blue. Gotta get out and try it. Red State Barbecue.
Welcome back to American Sunrise. This segment sponsored by, you just heard it, Red State Barbecue. RedStateBarbecue.com is the place to go. Use that promo code RAV10 and save yourself 10%.
They have that brand new apple bourbon sauce and getting ready for your weekend barbecues. You can grab their classic flavors. They have Memphis Sweet, one of my favorites, Texas Spicy, North Carolina, Alabama Barbecue. The list goes on. And RedStateBarbecue.com is where you go. Put in your promo code RAV10 for your 10% off. Got to get that weekend started off right.
You do. So talking about saucy, apparently more and more Democrats are losing their appetite for Joe Biden and want someone with a little, or should we say a lot more flavor.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah. So take a look at this story from our friends over at Just the News. According to a new poll, Biden's approval rating hit 39% as more than 2/3 of Democrats say they want a candidate other than Biden. Take that in, 2/3 to run for the White House in the year 2024. And to make matters worse for Biden, it was CNN that conducted the poll. Watch this.
Within the margin of error, no clear leader. Donald Trump, 47%. Joe Biden, 46%. They're basically in a statistical tie. But what I will note was there was not a single poll conducted by CNN during the entire 2020 cycle in which Donald Trump got a higher share of the vote than Joe Biden did. So this is a vastly different picture from what we saw 4 years ago.
That is some very interesting context in all of this. What it means, we will see.
Well, what this means is what we can already see, and that it's bad news for Biden. So just want to point that out. Also, this poll showed that 5 of the top 7 Republican candidates, so it's not just Trump, 5 of the top 7 Republican candidates would beat Biden in a general election in 2024. That has to be having them a little scared, I would say so.
I mean, what concerns me about this is that his numbers are so bad that 5 of the Republican, as you said, candidates could beat him. Donald Trump would blow him out of the water, depending on vote fraud on the side of the Democrats. But why is every Democrat who's dependent on the top of the ticket not filling up your airwaves, terrified of this, screaming about it, saying, get this man gone? Because I can tell you, if the situation were reversed and Donald Trump were the incumbent and his numbers looked anything like Joe Biden, every Republican would be screaming, get him gone.
Oh,
because
exactly.
they will lose their races. What is it in the Democrat Party that causes this level of compliance? People should be concerned about this.
I think they are. I think they are, because this is why Kamala is off touring college campuses, which is what she's doing right now. I want to bring Terrance into the conversation as well. I mean, is she more likely, let me put it to you this way, Terrance, is she more likely to help or hurt him in the polls?
You know what? I think he's hurting himself. But when you add her to the mix, it definitely doesn't help. I think it's probably kind of a flat line, and I say that figuratively and literally. That campaign is flatlining, and Kamala can't even be the paddles to breathe some life into it, if you will.
Yeah, for sure. And I want to go to a story that we teased a lot real quickly, if we can, before we go to headlines. Okay, we'll try to get to that in just a moment. We're going to talk about Colorado in just a second.
All right, well, let's stay in Georgia. That's where, of course, CNN is housed, and that's also where our next guest is. We want to talk a bit about President Trump, who, of course, is under siege by prosecutors. The next guest that I alluded to, Donna Fiducia, co-host of Cowboy Logic here on Real America's Voice, joins us. Also, David Brody back for the conversation. Donna, Georgia's an interesting place these days. The AJC, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, just printing a letter from Fani Willis, the Fulton County District Attorney, to Jim Jordan, in which she basically says, all of your requests for information about my indictment against President Trump, take it and shove it. I'm just going to softball you that way and let you take it away.
Well, I think it goes back even to the poll you just showed. The mainstream media has the lie of omissions, and that is what is swaying so many young people that unfortunately watch the mainstream media. So Fannie's criticizing Jim Jordan for launching an investigation into the Trump RICO case. She essentially criminalized the First Amendment, quite honestly, and that's what Jordan is accusing her of. And she's basically saying, sorry, it doesn't matter because I'm not going to comply. Well, the bigger thing that's happening here in Georgia now, though, is the Georgia AG, Chris Carr, has indicted 61 Antifa-linked terrorists arrested at the Stop Cop City with RICO charges. They're getting RICO charges themselves. This is the first time, finally, maybe something like this will stick against BLM and Antifa. Now, these guys talk about omission. These guys are handing out flyers, they said. They're only handing out flyers. Well, what they omit to tell you is that these flyers list the police officers, their family members, including home addresses. I mean, this is seriously bad. Yeah. And so these people have been indicted now, 61 of them. One of them was a lawyer for the Southern Poverty Law Center, which is huge. It all stems from a shooting because they're saying they're trying to save the forest outside there. Have you ever seen where these people camp? Where are the environmentalist, wacko, tree-hugging dingbats? I mean, this place is a complete junk heap when they leave these city areas, and it's horrendous. And the double standard is there, but it's about time, well, hopefully some of this will stick.
Donna, color me skeptical about the Antifa racketeering charges. I mean, it seems like this is more a cover your butt situation politically, but that's great that it's being done. Don't get me wrong. I'm curious about what you think about these Trump co-defendants down there that we're hearing so many reports of them potentially saving their own skin and trying to turn on Trump. Like Mark Meadows' attorney was like, hey, Meadows was just on the call. He wasn't doing anything. It's like Trump ordered him to take the call. And, you know, it's like that type of stuff. I wonder what you think about that.
Unfortunately, that is the MO of the DOJ. They're trying to if you indict this many people, some of them may flip. That's happening with Trump's tech guy down at Mar-a-Lago. He got rid of his lawyer, Stanley Woodward, and he has gotten new, apparently, legal help, and supposedly he is cooperating. I mean, when you bring down the federal government on these people that are tech people or valets, I mean, what do you expect is going to happen? It's changing. It's bizarre, though, to me, that someone like a Mark Meadows would do this. But then again, everybody's in the CYA mode, which is not good. David, I have a huge thing, and Terrance, a huge thing that I do want to also drop on you. Remember, James O'Keefe did these small donations going around to deep blue areas, and he found people said, I never donated. Those donations add up. Well, a reporter named Chris Gleason worked with not Project Veritas, but with James O'Keefe on this. This is from CDM Media. This is the Georgia Record reporting that there were enough small donations that Fannie Willis received, Senators Raphael Warnock, and also Senator John Ossoff received in Georgia. This is breaking news. More is coming on this, and this is bigly, to say the least. Huge.
So I think what you're implying, though, also is, and I don't want to speak for you, but what I'm hearing is these small donations also amount to influence.
Yeah, you'd think, but it also helps a lot of these other, who knows where they're getting their money from, these the people that are trying to stop Cop City and all this other stuff. It's just serious. It's just seriously causing a lot of. I always follow the money trail. That's really what you got to do, is follow the money trail. And this could be really a huge breaking story that could hopefully stick.
Donna, quickly, Cowboy Logic this weekend. What do you got? I got about 20 seconds.
Okay, we got Zach Rell, who got 15 years. He's a proud boy. His wife was pregnant on January 6th. He has yet to hug his baby daughter. The wife of Kenny Harrelson, Angel Harrison, also will be on with us. And Jovan Hutton Pulitzer, his book tells you how to save the vote. Countdown to Chaos. He's going to be on for a full hour on Cowboy Logic this weekend.
All right, I just want to note, Donna, by the way, on the picture of Cowboy Logic there, you look a whole lot better than Don. You look like a spokesmodel. He just looks like he's been spoken for.
Yes.
I'll pass that along.
Tell him I said it. All right, folks, we're going to be back in a minute.
Freedom-loving patriots are falling in love with America's barbecue sauce, Red State Barbecue. Red State's 8 different sauces are perfect for whatever sparks your barbecue palate. Visit redstatebbq.com. That's redstatebbq.com and use promo code RAV10 for 10% off. Red State Barbecue.
after 15 wanted suspects, members of the MS-13 gang. This is an ongoing operation down here in El Salvador. They already have 60,000 of these criminal thugs in prison. They would beat people with belts and bats and terrorize the community. MS-13 infiltrated the entire country. One of the guards was decapitated. The inmates played soccer with his head.
Welcome back, everybody. That's some grim reality right there.
It is. What you just saw there was a promo for a new episode of Law and Border that is going to be airing tomorrow. Joining us now, the host of Law and Border, our very own Ben Bergquam. Wow, it's terrifying to see that, but it's important that we watch it because you're the only one really getting out the real news when it comes to the border, certainly not the Biden administration.
Yeah, well, and thank you to our editors. They do an amazing job there. Now, what's interesting, it's going to be juxtaposed of that promo is actually all the amazing work. You talk about a win in the story of illegal immigration and countries in Central America and South America. El Salvador is actually one of the bright lights now, and they've gone from the most dangerous country in the world to one of the safest countries in the world because of President Bukele and the work that he's done, taking out MS-13 and Barrio 18. So you're going to want to see it. This is our 15th episode airing this Saturday, tomorrow, and it really exposes that. And then on Sunday, I'm rejoining Oscar Blue. I'll be back down in the Darien Gap next week, working from Panama because the disaster that Joe Biden has brought into our country is only getting worse. And as Donna just talked about, follow the money. The big question everyone should be asking is how many American politicians are paid off by the cartels? That's where we should be focusing some of our energy right now as well.
Absolutely. Ben, I'm so glad you're doing this, covering this, because El Salvador is one of those things that I became particularly interested. A friend of my son's moved there and was telling us it's so great, you won't believe it. And there's basically one policy this president instituted that changed everything. It sounds so easy. And I keep thinking, gosh, if our next president, who will hopefully be Donald Trump, will just institute this policy, it will change everything about how the border is working. Tell us, Ben.
Yeah, it's really simple. They changed the mindset from worrying about the rights of the criminals to worrying about the rights of the citizens. And when I was talking to the director of public safety, and amazing guy. And when he said that, it was like this epiphany. It's so simple but profound. We're not going to focus on the rights of the criminals. We're going to focus on the rights of the citizens. And one of the things they did is they designated MS-13 as enemy combatants, terrorist enemy combatants, and they treated them as such. That's exactly what we need to do to the cartels.
Yeah, and they punished the gang members, the gang leaders in prison, right? They would kill them if the gangs then committed any crime outside of the prison. I think it's genius. Anyway, Ben, we appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much, Ben. Law and Border El Salvador. It's happening this weekend, 4 o'clock Eastern Time Saturday and 8 o'clock Eastern Time Sunday. You don't want to miss it.
And it is time to spill some tea.
Let's spill some tea.
And, of course, this is sponsored by our friends at Artillery Tea Company. ArtilleryTeaCo.com is the place to go. Use that promo code RAV and save yourself 10%.
Artillery Tea is all natural, whole leaf, tea bags chemical-free. Each tea bag can be used twice.
It is a family and veteran-owned and operated business. And here's the great news about it. Not only is it wonderful tea, but it also, every purchase helps veteran and first responder charities.
ArtilleryTeaCompany.com, or sorry, ArtilleryTeaCo.com, ArtilleryTeaCo.com. Promo code RAV, and you get your discount there.
All right, real quickly, today in our cup, file this under not so smart. A 22-year-old German tourist damaged the famous fountain of Neptune in Florence last weekend when he climbed on it to take a selfie and broke off a piece of marble. What an idiot. Florence's mayor said in a post on X, formerly known as Twitter, that security footage caught the man trying to scale the iconic monument's chariot and chipping the marble. He also damaged the horse's hoof, on the way down, causing 5,000 euros, or basically $5,400 US worth of damage. The monument was originally built in 1574. I mean, really? A selfie, David? Ugh, this makes me so angry. I haven't even been there yet to see it, and this man's ruined it.
Can I request a change on the super, the lower third super there, and just put "what an idiot"? Can we just put just what? That's all we need to put. What, and by the way, I say that in a Christian
Dumb and
way.
Dumber?
What an idiot. Yeah, Dumb and Dumber, even better. I have nothing to say. I mean, come on. This is, you trespassed. Shame on you. This is what you get. And it's ridiculous.
I guess this would be a really bad time to say that I might have climbed in a fountain or two before. Anyway, it is time to end the week on an up note, and that's Sunny Side. Right back with a story that will leave you with a smile on your face.
Tired of the same old mass-produced, globalist-supporting tea companies? Artillery Tea Company is the Patriot source of natural premium tea. Visit artilleryteaco.com and use promo code RAB for 10% off.
It's time for Sunny Side Up. Miranda, Gina, David, listen to this. All of us want to be treated with respect in life, but some people, well, they're just born to command respect. And that brings me to this next lady we're getting ready to introduce you to. She's a young girl, but she makes sure that even her dad knows how to show her a little R-E-S-P-E-C-T.
I know what you know about Aretha.
What you want? Baby, I got what you need. You know I got it. What I'm asking is for the respect when I got some. Hey, baby, just when I get just a little bit. Mister, just a little bit. R-E-S-P-E-C-T. When I want to Mr. Me. R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Thank you, C-C-T.
Oh my gosh, that is hilarious. As a dad of two girls, I appreciate that. I appreciate her singing. I also appreciate his response because he's like, oh, this is going to backfire on me. She's going to be asking me for a Benz next week.
I love how he's standing there with his face completely stoic, like he's ignoring her and bored by her, because that's the only way to record your children when they act that adorable. I'm the one who's like, oh,